Hi guys, welcome back to Squirrel Shop. Today we are doing a set of forks, a refresh on a set of forks for a 2005 ZX6r or 636. 2005, 2006, same year model, same process. Really this is the same process on a lot of different forks, but to make you all feel comfortable, we do a lot of videos on the exact model you might be working on. So run through some tools we're going to need. You're going to need two 17mm wrenches. You're going to need a 32mm socket, a 22mm socket, and of course some of the necessary fork tools, which some of those there's workarounds. I'll talk about some of that, and some of it I feel like is pretty explanatory, and y'all should be able to figure out different ways of doing things that I maybe have specialized tools for. Another thing you may need, or that I prefer to use, is some kind of scratch-free pry bar. There's a lot of things that you need a little pry bar for that most people use a flat blade screwdriver for, a slot screwdriver for, and you'll end up nicking soft parts. Here's a perfect example. You can see someone has pulled this washer slash seal bushing out. They've pried the bushing out, or they've pried the seal out using this, and it has nicked this washer. That's the kind of thing we want to avoid. I talk about this in every single one of my fork videos, but this may be the first time I've actually showed why it matters. So let's get a good view of that. See all those little nicks. It'll still seal and everything, but you want to avoid this kind of thing. You got a lot of soft aluminum parts too. So let's get to it. First thing we're going to do is pull all of the preload off of this. It's going to help just help relieve tension and therefore make our job easier. You could do this before you remove the forks off the bike. That's what our 22mm is for. That is the preload adjuster on this set of forks. Okay. Now, the 32 for the cap. Pull that off. Loose. Get back in this vise here. Lower the outer fork body. There's a lot of ways to do this process right here. You could build a little tool. You can buy a little tool to do it by hand. Get a second hand. Those are all options. It's not actually under a lot of pressure, but holding it can be difficult. So, got our pins set. All we're trying to do is expose these two parts here. That's where our two 17mm come in play. Again, as in every video, I talk about this. We're trying to spin the cap off of the nut, not back the nut off. The nut controls the depths of your rebound and compression settings a lot of times, and if you back this nut off, it can change the factory settings. So be aware of that. Try not to move that. It's broken loose. Spin this cap off. Come with our dampening rod. Set it over here to the side with the other one. We can let this fall back in. Remove these two pieces. It's fine. Set them to the side. Of course, keep track of the order of parts. But part of the purpose of this video is that if you do lose track of the order of parts, you can go back to this video and see how everything came apart. everything is going to come out pretty dirty right now. I will be washing my hands and keeping them very clean when it comes to reassembly. There's that spring. Today we are actually replacing these springs with a rider weight specific spring from Racetech. That doesn't change the processes at all, so I will mention that again, but don't let that confuse you when the time comes. And I'm putting a slightly longer spring in. Set this to the side up here. Okay, now we're going to get one of our scratch frees, pry it under here, start lifting and rotating. Okay, our dust seal's up. The key is to be careful when you pry these up, not to allow anything to come into contact with the inner fork body where you might scratch it. If you scratch this portion, it can cause leaks later. I'm going to raise this all the way to the top before I pry it off to avoid any potential scratches. And now, this is going to come right out on this body, because this style and year fork, everything is smooth in here and everything is retained here. Okay, so once again, these seals are probably going to be really tight in here. Some are tighter, some are looser. These seals are pretty old. The older they are, the likelier they are to be tight. We're going to try to just work our way around. Pry up. Slowly making some headway here. There it is. Pull this ring out, set it to the side, let this drain the rest of the way. Okay, these two pieces have already been drained, so we're going to move straight on to them so we can continue the video. So on this particular model, everything has been rounded. The bleeder holes for the dampening and this top edge. So some of my typical concerns are a little bit mitigated, but we are going to take precautions anyway. Fork bullet here for setting the seal. Some people will set the seals inside this first. In my opinion, that's a bad idea. You're very much more likely to scratch inserting this back into here instead of inserting your seal onto your inner fork and then using your slide hammer to push it all in your outer fork. So typically I tape these bleed holes with a little bit of electrical tape. It's not a bad idea to do it anyway, but these are very smooth on this particular model, so I'm not actually going to bother. Here's our dust seal, or wipe, and here is our regular main seal. So, a little important piece of information. We need a light ring of grease on the inside of all of these. This helps it go on, helps avoid any kind of tears or rips. When we put it on, we're going to slide the dust seal on first, all the way to the bottom. The main seal is going to get grease inside and out. Again, just a very light layer. You don't even want to be able to really see it other than it looks wet. There is a spring ring on the inside and the outside of the seal. You can see the direction, hopefully, that this is facing. There's a leading lip here that is going to go down on your fork. Pop that over, press it down, fork bullet comes off. Going to wipe this again. wipe up this ring. There's a smooth side and a flat side to this. The flat side goes against your seal. Okay, bushings are already in place in here. We're going to slide it straight on. Flip it. Put a block here. We're going to drive this seal. Use our seal driver here. Don't have a lot of stroke on this one. Okay. That's enough. I don't know if you can see down in there, but we're past the retaining ring lip. So now, put this retaining ring back in. Spread it, make sure that we don't touch the fork wall with it. Pop it into place, something scratch free. Press our wipe or dust seal down. Sometimes, if these are extra tight, like this one, sometimes you have to set them in place with your fork seal driver. Okay, right here, and now we're going to fill up with oil. So, we're looking for 110 millimeters of air gap. You can measure that a number of different ways. I have a special tool to measure it. Another important detail here is that we need to get a hold of this piston. And pump it. Hear all that air? You want to pump until you're no longer hearing air. You probably want to pump this 10 to 20 times. Or if you're mechanically inclined enough, just keep pumping until you can tell that it's fully bled. Okay, now we will check level. We'll pull off the excess. This. So again, that's 110 millimeters of air gap, and that is with nothing inside the fork tube, and that's using a 10-weight oil. The weight of the oil is somewhat brand specific and somewhat user specific, but just a good medium oil for general use for this fork is a 10-weight. Okay, so we're going to drop one of our new springs in. We're going to clean up the spacer. Press the fork. fork spring here. Now we need to pick this up. The dampening piston. I like to just set it on that edge there so it'll fall in. There we go, it's set to the edge. Drop the cap in. Again, trying not to turn this nut. So I want to turn the cap, not the nut, lock them in place. Now we are ready to relieve tension. Decompress the fork. Once we get this back on the bike, we'll torque this top cap down. Just needs to really just be just a little bit more tension on it past its seating, but I mean, really, that's the fork rebuild. Obviously, but just in case it's not obvious, you need to take note of all of your settings. If you don't know how to reset suspension and you're just trying to go back to exactly how you had it, take note of all of your settings before you change any of them, and yeah, we'll go from there. That's a finished fork build or refresh. So yep, pretty simple. There you go. Hope that helps.